Well, Alan, thank you so much for accepting our invitation again. You were our guest like exactly 7 years ago in Istanbul. It was quite extraordinary time for all of us. And now again, we are in such a weird time with you. I think that I need to introduce you. Everyone already knows you from that year. We have been posting things about your films, your work on our social media recently. So everyone knows. So we hope that they already saw your films, part of them, at least the one that we are showing, Intimate Stranger, since yesterday. And I just want to let you in the stage and start. Okay. Maybe we should say that you will have like your own presentation at the beginning, but if anyone likes to ask question in the context, you can just raise the hand. You know when you click on the participants, you see on the right the list of the participants, and you can raise your hands for questions. But at the end of the session, we will already have a question and answer part. So if you have questions, also you can keep them till the end of the first part, and we will try to give word to everyone. Yes, Alan.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank Nejati and the Documentarist Film Festival for inviting me to speak with you today and to talk with you today. It's a big honor for me. Gamze, I'm going to stop and you.
Sure. Öncelikle Necati'ye ve Documentarist Film Festivali ekibine çok teşekkür etmek istiyorum davet ettikleri için.
As Nejati said, 7 years ago in June of 2013, I was a guest of the film festival. And on the very day of my arrival is when the Gezi Park protests started. And as many of you may remember, the festival was canceled. And Istanbul was an extraordinary place during that week.
Necati'nin de söylediği gibi 7 yıl önce ben gelmiştim İstanbul'a Documentarist'te ve tabii ki çok olağanüstü bir zamandı. Tam geldiğim gün hatta Gezi protestoların başladığı gündü. Festivalde zaten iptal edilmişti.
In many ways, my experience in Istanbul during the protests around Gezi Park and Taksim Square changed my life, and in many ways it changed the direction of my work. And so I will always feel a very deep connection to not only the film festival but to Istanbul and to Turkey.
Aslında Gezi dönemde birçok şey değişti benim için. Benim hayatımda da çok şey değişti ve birçok şekilde işimin yönelmesine de sağladı, başka yerlere değişmesini sağladı. Onun için her zaman bu festivale özellikle ve Türkiye'ye böyle bir bağ hissediyorum kendim.
As I was walking out of the tear gas 7 years ago, a very nice Turkish man saw that I was very disoriented and I could barely see, I could barely breathe, and he bought me a bottle of water from a store, and he told me to tell the American people that Turkey was not a democracy. And now 7 years later, democracy in the United States is also in question and under attack. And so, and of course, the situation in Turkey is still a problem. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot as I've been preparing to talk with you.
7 yıl önce Gezi'de özellikle biber gazından çıktığımı hatırlıyorum ve nefes alamıyordum, göremiyordum, hiçbir şey göremiyordum. Gerçekten çok zorlandım. Ve bir tane Türk adam durdu, gördü beni, zorlandığımı gördü ve bakkaldan bana bir şişe su aldı. Ve bana dedi ki, git Amerika'ya söyle ki, Amerikalılara söyle ki Türkiye'de demokrasi yok. Ve şimdi 7 sene sonra görüyoruz ki Amerika'da da şu an demokrasi soru işareti var mı yok mu? Burada da zaten durumlar çok iyi değil ve bugünlerde özellikle sizinle konuşmadan önce bunları düşünüyordum.
Freedom of speech, freedom to protest, freedom of the press. It's a scary time for all of us, and we're not even mentioning the pandemic. And I hope that each of you is healthy and safe wherever you are.
Yani ifade özgürlüğü, basın özgürlüğü, medya, konuşma, kendini ifade edebilme, bunların hepsini şu an sorguluyoruz. Çok zor dönemdeyiz ki bir de üstüne pandemiyi bahsetmiyorum bile. Hani umarım hepinizin sağlığı yerindedir, hepiniz iyisinizdir.
Now, if some of you, I hope many of you have seen some of my films. I know Intimate Stranger has been made available as part of the festival. Was part of the festival, and Nobody's Business is on Mobi, in Turkish Mobi. So many of you know that I make personal films, and I use my own life as a way of exploring the world and as a way of exploring what connects us as human beings, the human condition.
Belki filmlerimi izlemişsinizdir. Biliyorum ki 2 tanesi zaten festivalin içinde yer buluyor programda. Bir tanesi dün başladı zaten Vimeo üzerinden. Diğeri Mubi ile işbirliğiyle gösteriliyor. Ve genellikle benim işlerim daha kişisel oluyor. Yani kendi hayatımı kullanarak, kendi hikayelerimi kullanarak dünyayı keşfediyorum, bir şeyleri düşünüyorum ve filmlerimde ifade ediyorum. Belki bunu zaten görmüşsünüzdür.
I know many of you are filmmakers, and some of you are young filmmakers, and so I'm here to try to help you and make you think about your work in a different way. Perhaps I can inspire you, but I'm here to share some of my experience as a filmmaker and how I approach what I do, and see if I can say some things that will help you as you both think about your work and move your work forward from this day.
Biliyorum ki buradaki birçok insan filmle uğraşıyor, film yapmak istiyor. Çoğunuz da genç yaşlardasınız. Onun için bugün umarım sizinle deneyimlerimi, bildiklerimi paylaşabilirim ve belki ilham olabilir bu. Ve özellikle işinizi nasıl yapacağınızı ve nasıl ileriye taşıyacağınızı deneyimlerim üzerinden paylaşmak ve konuşmak istiyorum bugün.
Now, every film that any of us make has a title and it has a subject, you know, what the film's about. There's a synopsis or a blurb that says what the film is about. But I'd like you to think about films and use this expression, a Trojan horse, that every film is not only your description of it, but it contains all sorts of personal and cultural and social and political, even economic issues. It's filled with a universe of things inside. The best films contain the universe that surrounds the subject, the surface subject of the film.
Yani her filmin bir ismi vardır ve konusu vardır. Zaten sinopsis, özet okursunuz filmi izlemeden önce. Ama şunu düşünmenizi istiyorum. Sadece filmin konusu değil de bir tür Truva atı gibi. Konunun içinde aslında birçok şey var. Siyasi olarak, kültürel olarak, sosyal, ekonomik, her şeyi aslında içinde barındırabilir ve en iyi filmler zaten bunu yapar.
So, as someone who makes my own films, and I try to do as much of the process of filmmaking as possible, so if you look at the credits of my films, it says producer, director, editor, writer, sound design. It says a film by Alan Berliner, what have you. To me, that's not interesting. You know, those are just jobs. Those are just jobs. Yeah.
Filmlerimde, jeneriklerde görürsünüz mesela işte yönetmen, yazar, yapımcı, kurgucu vesaire hepsinin Alan Berliner, bir Alan Berliner filmi yazıyor. Ama aslında bunun hiçbiri ilginç değil. Bunlar sadece bir iş, yapılan bir iş.
So to make the personal films that I make, I'm not only the person who does those jobs, but let's think about it a little differently. I'm in my films, I'm a son, a brother, a father, a husband, an uncle, a nephew, a cousin, a grandson, and sometimes even a friend. Gamze, can you get that list? Is that?
Yeah. Yani filmlerimde aslında bir taraftan da bir oğul, baba, koca, kuzen, yeğen, her türlü filmin içindeyim. Hatta bazen bir arkadaş olarak oradayım.
But in addition to that, I'd like to think that the films that I make require me to have many, many different additional roles. And I'm going to have a long list. I'll say just 4 or 5, and then we'll go further. To make my films, I need to also be an anthropologist, an archaeologist, a sociologist, a psychologist.
Yani bir taraftan da aslında ekstra olarak filmlerimi yaparken ve kendi filmlerimi yaptığım için bir arkeolog, antropolog, sosyolog, psikolog olmam gerekiyor.
I'm also, to make my films, I'm a historian, I'm a private detective, I'm a genealogist, I'm a librarian, I'm an archivist.
Bir taraftan, wait, what was the first one?
I'm a private detective, a genealogist, librarian, archivist.
Genetik filmlere bakan, kütüphaneci, tarihçi.
I'm a journalist, an artist, you know.
Gazeteci, sanatçı.
I'm always want to be an informed citizen, and you know, and now in a certain way, I've become also an activist in some way.
Ve bir taraftan bilgisi olan bir vatandaş olmak istiyorum. Bu yüzden bunun hepsini yaparken de aktivist oldum aslında.
The point is that each of the films that you're making or thinking about making should demand of you not only to be the producer, director, writer, editor, camera person, but all the different parts of you that you use, that you need to understand the world.
Yani bir film yaparken siz de bir film düşünüyorsanız ya da elinizde bir şey varsa şu an sadece yönetmen, yazar, çeken, kameraman, sesçi vesaire değil. Bunun dışında aslında hayatındaki var olan ve bu filmi yapabilmek için başka neler olabilirsin ve yapabilirsin. Bunu düşünün.
Sometimes when I make my films and I build the soundtrack, I think of myself like there's a musician part of me. Sometimes when I'm editing my films, I think of myself as a tailor.
Mesela filmimin müziklerini ayarlarken birden kendimdeki var olan müzisyeni keşfediyorum. Aslında bir tarafım müzisyen ya da kurguya oturduğumda kurgu yaparken terzi gibi hissediyorum kendimi.
So I'd like each of you to think about the projects that you're working on, and outside of those jobs, you know, those that are at the end of the film, think about all the credits that you could give that are part of who you are, that you need, all those roles that you need to activate within yourself to approach your subject. Because again, the best films demand all those different parts of you to work together to explore your stories.
Yani şu an bir proje üzerinde çalışıyorsan bir düşün, bu jenerikteki yazılan işler dışında neler yapabilirsin? Kendindeki var olan başka kimliklerini ve yeteneklerini nasıl kullanabilirsin? Nasıl keşfedebilirsin? Ve bahsettiğim gibi en iyi filmler bunların hepsini kullanır. Senin kişiliğindeki ve yeteneğindeki her türlü ne varsa hepsini kullanman için bir yerdir aslında ve bunu kullanırsan zaten filmindeki her şeyi, daha çok yönlerini keşfedebilirsin.
I'd like to show you a clip from a film I made around 2006 or so. It's called Wide Awake, and it's a film that I made about insomnia, my inability to sleep. I'm going to show you that clip. It's a few minutes long, and then I'll talk about it afterwards, if that's okay. So let's see if I can make this work. And here we
Klip
go.
gösterecek bir filmden, 2006'da çekmiş bir film, insomnia hakkında. Klibi izleyeceğiz, sonra üzerine konuşacak.
Here we go. It's playing?
No, can you?
Hold on, let me try
Leave the
again.
link.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
We
Let me try again.
see it full screen.
Oh, hold on. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. No, that's not
Yes.
the one.
No.
That's not the road. It's not the one. Give me one more try.
Sure.
I'm sorry. It's this one.
Stand close to the chair. Is there something I haven't asked that would be illuminating? That'd be important for me to know.
If you said I can turn you from a night person into a morning person, I'm not sure that I would want to do it. I'm not sure I'd be able to do it. I wonder if I'm too far gone, if I'm wired this way because
So you're a hopeless case.
I don't know.
That's you're wondering.
I'm wondering. Are you seeing it now?
Yeah.
Those electrodes are monitoring my brain waves, my
But it's still, right?
No, it's not.
Yes.
oxygen in my blood, the muscle tone in my
Now,
chest.
yes.
Okay, hold on.
Not only that, but there's a camera close to the chair and a microphone hanging.
Let me start one more time.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the glitch. I'm sorry.
Can't record.
If you said I can turn you from a night
person
person
into
into
a
a
morning
person, I'm not
Actually,
sure.
it got okay. Last a few seconds.
Okay, hold on. I don't know. Okay, hold on. Okay, let's try one more time. I'm sorry. Do you have the full screen? Do you see the screen now?
No.
Stand close to the
Do
chair.
you see now?
Not yet.
No, okay, one more try. Okay, here we go.
Yes, great.
Stand close to.
Yes.
So is there something I haven't asked that would be illuminating? That'd be important for me to know.
If you said I can turn you from a night person into a morning person, I'm not sure that I would want to do it. I'm not sure I'd be able to do it.
I wonder if I'm too far gone, if I'm wired this way because
So you're a hopeless case.
I don't know.
That's what you're wondering.
I'm wondering. I'm wondering. Those electrodes are monitoring my brain waves, my eye movement, my heartbeat, my breathing, the oxygen in my blood, the muscle tone in my chin, my leg movement. Not only that, but there's a camera on the wall and a microphone hanging from the ceiling. The only thing they can't record is what's going on inside my head. Every night when I put my head to the pillow is like an adventure. I never know how long it's going to take me to sleep, if I can fall asleep. But what always happens is that my mind starts to race uncontrollably. I don't shut off. My brain doesn't shut off. And I can't control where it goes or for how long.
Little man, you're crying. I know why you're blue.
Okay, we back?
Yeah.
Okay. So in making a film about insomnia, about sleep, a personal film, let me just back up for a second and say that the traditional way of approaching a film about sleep, I could have put an ad in the newspaper, and the ad could have said something like, filmmaker looking for subjects who don't sleep well, maybe you'd be willing to let me follow your treatment, go to the doctor. But I could have sought out people to follow for their experience of insomnia. Gamze?
İnsomnia hakkında, yani uyuyamama ve uyku hakkında bir film yaparken aslında geleneksel olarak bunu yapmak için normalde bir ilan verirsin, mesela gazeteye bir ilan verirsin. Böyle bir sorununuz varsa, uyuyamıyorsanız ve eğer izin verirseniz sizi çekebilir miyim, takip edebilir miyim diye başka insanlar bulurdum aslında.
I also could have put an advertisement in the newspaper or special publications for sleep doctors and said, I'm looking for doctors who would introduce me to their patients. Maybe you'll allow me to go into your into the therapy sessions and you know, I can follow the treatment of your patients. That would have been another very appropriate way to make a film about insomnia.
Ya da diğer türlü şunu da yapabilirdim. Direkt doktorlara ilan yazabilirdim. İşte eğer doktorsanız ve bu tür hastalarınız varsa izin verirseniz işte ofisinize gelip terapi zamanlarda gelip çekim yapabilir miyim? Takip edebilir miyim? Bu da aslında bir yöntem.
And you know, in documentary filmmaking, the key in many ways, is the relationship between the filmmaker and the subject, the filmmaker and the issues that are being involved, and that's that involves this word access. Access. What kind of access do you have?
Normalde özellikle belgesel film için tabii ki önemli olan filmi yapan kişiyle, karakterle ya da konuyla arasında olan ilişki ve bunu nasıl kurabiliyor? Onun için genellikle erişim konusu oluyor.
Each of us, it's okay, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Each of us, through our lives, across our lives and our filmmaking lives, eventually gets different kinds of special access. We might get access to a person, we might get access to an institution, to an organization, to some special information that no one else knows. We might get access to a story before it happens, you know, but very often, most documentary films that you will ever see involve someone who had some kind of special access to the story and the subject they're talking about.
Hayatımız boyunca ve filmci olarak hayatımız boyunca farklı özel erişimlerimiz oluyor. Bu bir kişiye olabilir ya da bir konuya erişimimiz olabilir. Bir hikayeye olmadan önce ya da paylaşılmadan önce biz erişim ya da bunu önceden bilmiş olabiliriz. Bir yere ya da bir konuya. Ve what was the last thing you said, sorry?
Well, every film that any documentary film that anyone will ever see is in the end based on some kind of special access.
Ve onun için izlediğiniz her belgesel filmi bir özel erişimi vardı o belgeselcinin. Bu konu olabilir, kişi olabilir. İzlediğiniz her filmde vardır bu.
So when I mentioned the different ways I could have had access into the world of insomnia through doctors or you know, patients of the doctors, I also realized that I had access to someone who had also a very special and deep relationship to insomnia.
Yani bunu düşünürken işte ya doktorlara ilan verebilirim ya da hastalara ilan verebilirim. Kimi bulabilirim, kime erişebilirim. Aslında başka biri daha vardı. Çok derin bir bağ olan bir kişi vardı.
I had access to someone who would work with me for as long as it took to make the film. I had access to someone who would let me into his bedroom. I had access to someone who would let me bring a camera into his bedroom. And his wife was okay with that, and his wife would even use the camera if it was appropriate.
Bir kişiye bir erişimim vardı ve o kişi filmin yapılması için ne kadar uzun sürerse çekim yapmaya hazırdı, izin veriyordu. Hatta kameramla evine gitmemi, yatak odasına girmemi, ona uyurken çekmemi, hatta eşi de onay veriyordu, izin veriyordu ve gerekirse kamerayı kullanmayı da kabul ediyordu.
I had access to someone who would gave me access to someone who would allow me to read his dream journals. I had access to someone who wasn't afraid to make fun of himself. I had access to someone who he and his wife were about to have a baby in the next within the next year, and I had someone, it just so happened, who was a filmmaker, which I found very interesting.
Bu kişiye erişimi sağladım ve bu kişinin rüya günlüğüne bile erişimim vardı. Düşündükleri her şeyi bana söyleyebilirdi. Eşiyle bir bebeği olacağı o sene içinde ve hatta kendisinin de filmci olduğunu, film yaptığını öğrendim.
What I'm trying to say is I had access to myself. Okay,
Yani
and
demek istediğim, sorry.
no, it's okay.
Yani
I
demek
had access.
istediğim
Yeah,
kendim vardım.
It's okay. Yeah.
Hı hı.
And there's no better access for me in the circumstance of that film than to use my own life, my own struggle as the laboratory for telling that kind of story.
Yani kendi hikayemi kullanarak, kendi hayatımı kullanarak daha iyi bir şey bulamazdım. Ve kendi durumumu o laboratuvar olarak kullanmak en iyisiydi benim için aslında.
Now, I would just say also that making a film as using your own life and your own experience as a source for the story, as the laboratory for the story, can also get very complicated.
Tabii kendi hayatını, kendini kullanmak film için bir taraftan da tabii ki karışık olabilir ve zorlukları olabilir.
Remember, I'm director of the film, I'm the editor of the film, I'm shooting parts of the film, the personal parts at night, but I'm also the subject of the film.
Hatırlayın, filmin yönetmeniyim, kurgucusuyum, yazarıyım, bazen çekimleri de yapıyorum. Ama aynı zamanda şimdi konusu, karakteri ben oldum.
The director in me is saying to himself, this is fantastic. I'm inside the mind of an insomniac. No one can get greater, deeper, more intimate access than I am getting to this insomniac. This is amazing. This is amazing. That's what the director in me is thinking.
Yani bendeki o yönetmen tarafım diyor ki bu müthiş. Ben bu kişiye tamamen erişebiliyorum. Ne düşündüğünü, kafasındaki her şeye erişebiliyorum. Ve bundan daha derin, daha yakın olamam zaten. Onun için bu müthiş bir şey.
Meanwhile, the subject of the film, also me, is thinking, this is crazy. This is hell. How did I agree to do this? This is a nightmare. I can't, the pressure of making the film and of being the subject, it won't end until the film is finished. Why did I agree to do this? I hate this.
Ama karakter
It was a
olan
nightmare. It was a nightmare.
karakter olan o filmin konusu olan ben bir taraftan da nefret etti bundan. Çünkü sürekli bir baskı var. Bir taraftan her şeyi yapmak zorundayım. Bu tamamen bir cehenneme dönüştü benim için aslında. Nefret ettim yani.
All I can say is that to make the kind of films I make, I do whatever it takes. I sacrifice myself. I whatever it takes to make the film, that's what I do. Whatever I have to struggle, suffer, sacrifice, whatever the cost on any level, that's what I do. I work for the film. The film tells me what it needs, and I say yes every time without question.
Yani bir belgeselci olarak ben film için ne gerekiyorsa yaparım. Yani bütün kendimi fedakar ediyorum aslında bir taraftan. Ve ne kadar zor olsa da, ne kadar mücadele etmem gerekse de, ne kadar bazı şeylerden vazgeçmem gerekse de bunların hepsini yapmaya hazırım.
Another important part of the work that I do is trying to find metaphors for storytelling. Sometimes that metaphor involves the use of sound. Sometimes it involves the use of images or specific types of images. And sometimes it involves the relationship between different sounds and images. All right? And I think of those things as equal. For me, sound is equal to image. You know, it's not less important. In traditional ways of thinking about cinema, sound is secondary, you know, is the second child. For me, sound and picture are equal.
Aynı zamanda film yaparken metafor kullanmayı, metafor düşünmeyi çok seviyorum. Bunun için özellikle bazı sesleri kullanmayı ya da imgeleri kullanmayı seviyorum. Ve benim için ikisi de kesinlikle eşittir. Yani imge, görsel ve ses eşittir. Normalde geleneksel olarak sinemada ses daha ikinci geliyor. Ama ben buna katılmıyorum. Benim için eşittir ikisi de.
In the film that is part of the festival that I hope many of you have seen, Intimate Stranger, which is a portrait of my grandfather, my mother's father, I use the sound of a manual typewriter as a guiding metaphor and way of organizing many photographs and documents that my grandfather left behind when he died.
Festivaldeki yer alan, umarım izlemişsinizdir, Ailedeki Yabancı filminde mesela daktilo sesini kullandım. Yani o trak trak daktilo sesini kullandım. Bunu bir taraftan bir metafor olarak ama aynı zamanda filmin yönünü tutması, işte ritmi tutması ve bütün o bir sürü dedemin bıraktığı fotoğrafları birleştirmek ve organize etmek için kullandığım bir şeydi. Bu film dedesi hakkında, annesinin babası hakkında.
So the sound of the typewriter serves many purposes. Number one, my grandfather died in the middle of writing his autobiography. So now I'm using the sound of the very typewriter that he was using. I had his typewriter. I used the sound of the manual typewriter that he was using to tell his story. So that's the first thing. I use almost like the screen as a blank piece of paper. The white screen became like a blank piece of paper for me to work to type on, you know, to work with.
Bu daktilo sesi filmde birçok şey olarak kullanıldı. Birincisi, dedem tam otobiyografisini yazarken öldü. Yarısını daha bitirmişti ve onun kullandığı o eski daktiloyu kullandım tam da. Ve ekran, yani filmi kurgularken ekran o beyaz kağıda dönüştü. Daktilonun yazdığı kağıt gibi oldu ve sanki ben bu filmi yazıyorum daktilo kullanır gibi.
My grandfather left behind thousands of photographs and thousands of documents. And so using the typewriter to organize them into sequences and unify them into groups and to help organize them, it became a structural device for making sense of an infinity of material. It also allowed me, because of the clack, clack, clack, tick, you know, clack, clack, clack of the typewriter and the bell, it also allowed me to give the film a musicality. It allowed me to make music with the rhythms of the typewriter.
Bir taraftan dedem binlerce fotoğraf ve belge bıraktı ve bunları organize edebilmek için, onları bir şekilde sokabilmek için, biçimlendirebilmek için bu daktilo sesi çok yardımcı oldu. Ve aynı zamanda o trak trak trak sesi, daktilonun sesi ve zilin sesi aslında film için bir müzik oluşturdu.
Let me show you a clip from Intimate Stranger.
Şimdi bir klip gösterecek filmden.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
Find my grandfather in this photograph. It's almost as if the composition forms around him. He has the most space to his body and his hand.
You'll find very few photographs that he has that he's not in. And if he's not in the center.
What's that about?
That's about showing that he wants to be an important part of whatever group he's with.
Find him in this shot.
He's the only one in white. Well, that could be a coincidence. You know, they probably played a practical joke. They said everybody's coming in white, and they all wore black.
Maybe he didn't have a black suit. Come on. He wanted to be the center of attention.
My father learned how to pose at a very early age. He's aware of the camera. There's always that eye contact.
This is a photograph of all the prominent Zionists of Alexandria, including the governor of Alexandria, plus the chief rabbis of Egypt.
He said he was one of the original Zionists in Egypt. I remember questioning the picture they had with Chaim Weitzman. I donated that picture to the Chaim Weizmann Museum in Israel. And I told him I'm the son of Joseph Kasuda, and this is Chaim Weizmann, and he came to Alexandria in 1928.
What did the museum say when you donated?
They thanked me very much, that's all. What else are they going to say? They're going to put it on a file, one out of a million.
He was very proud of this photograph because, number one, he's in the center. Number two, he's with probably the world's greatest Zionist.
Come on, that's all nonsense, for Christ's sake. You know, you can pay somebody to pose.
You think he paid Chaim Weizmann?
I'm not saying that. It could be a contrived picture. Chaim Weizmann may not even knew him from a hole in the wall. He was there, so they took his picture.
He's in the middle of the picture.
How do you know how the picture was organized? They may have gotten into a group, and this pushy guy got himself in the middle, and got himself organized.
I'm back. Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah. So as you see, the typewriting, the sound and the structure of the typewriter allowed me to prioritize which images I can show very briefly and which images I thought would allow me to excavate them and explore them with humor, with criticism, with a more of a psychological exploration. And I use the sound of the typewriter in different ways throughout the film to help me organize the material.
Yani burada bu klipte gördüğünüz gibi daktilonun sesini bu fotoğrafları gösterirken ne kadar hızlı ya da ne kadar yavaş bir fotoğrafa baktığımızı bunu kullanarak kontrol edebildim. Bazı durduğu yerlerde ben seçiyordum. Tamam, bu fotoğrafı şimdi duracağız, analize edeceğiz, konuşmalar olacak ve bu şekilde daktilo sesini kullanarak o görselleri, o fotoğrafları organize edebildim. Ve başka türlü de bir sürü farklı yönüne kullandım bu sesi.
Making Intimate Stranger was a very important film for me because it also allowed me to learn the history of the maternal side of my family. My mother was born in Alexandria, Egypt, or let me rephrase, my grandfather was born in Palestine. He was raised and educated in Egypt. He worked for a Japanese company in Egypt, in Japan, and in the United States. And it was allowed me to explore the story of my maternal family history.
Bu filmi yapmak benim için çok önemliydi çünkü annemin aile tarafını ve onların tarihlerini gerçekten anladım ve bu sayede araştırdım. Dedem Filistin'de doğdu, Mısır'a gitti, orada çalıştı, Japon bir şirket için çalıştı, oradan Amerika'ya ve tekrar Japonya'ya gitti. Ve bunların hepsini annemin ailesini, annemin tarafını bu filmi yaparak öğrendim.
It allowed me to tell a story of a man who sacrificed his relationship to his family, to his wife, my grandmother, to his children, my uncles, for his belief and love of Japan and the recovery of Japan in the post-war period.
Bu film sayesinde dedemi anlatabildim ve onun ailesiyle olan ilişkisini nasıl fedakar ettiğini ve bunların hepsini inandığı şeye tutunduğu için, yani Japonya'nın ve özellikle İkinci Dünya Savaşı'ndan sonraki Japonya'nın kötü durumda olduğu için onlara yardım edebilmek için bunu yaptığını gösterebildim.
The film allowed me to explore what I thought at the time, I still believe, was a rather extraordinary and unusual relationship between an Egyptian Jewish man and his Japanese friends, one of whom describes my grandfather in the film as being more Japanese than Japanese.
Aynı zamanda çok özel ve tuhaf ilişkileri gösterebildim bu filmde. Yani Mısırlı, Yahudi bir adamla Japon arkadaşları arasında ilişki. Hatta filmde geçen bir söz var Japon arkadaşından. Diyor ki o Japonlardan daha Japon aslında.
So all I can say is that this is a film that back to the list of roles I read to you, I spoke with you earlier in my presentation. You know, I very much had to be a psychologist, a family therapist, a private detective, an archivist, a historian, an anthropologist, an archaeologist, to wade through all the thousands of documents and photographs that my grandfather left behind. So what I'm saying is this is an example of a kind of project that used all of me, you know, that challenged all these different parts of me to tell my grandfather's story.
Bir taraftan da önceden söylediğim gibi bu farklı roller var diye bu filmi yapabilmek için tarihçi tarafımı, arşivist tarafımı, detektif tarafımı, sosyolog, aile psikoloğu bunların hepsini kullandım film için. Ve onun için bunu diyorum, film yaparken bütün yönlerini, bütün her şeyini kullanabilmek ve benim için de böyle oldu bu filmde.
After I finished Intimate Stranger, I realized that I had done an extraordinary family history, and I made copies of the film, and I sent it to every relative that I had. In effect, I was giving them a mythology, giving them their history that they could not only watch, but pass on to their children and their children's children throughout, you know, moving forward through the generations.
Filmi bitirdikten sonra şunu da fark ettim. Aslında çok müthiş bir aile tarihi yazdım bu filmde. Bunun için bütün ailedeki herkese bir kopya gönderdim filmin. Sadece izlemeleri için değil, aslında çocuklarına verirler. Onlar da kendi çocuklarına verirler diye bir tarihimiz, hatta mitolojimiz, aile tarihimizi hediye etmiş oldum.
Intimate Stranger is the story of my maternal family history through the story of my grandfather, who does not say one word in the film. He does not say one word. I had thousands of photographs. I had 0 words, except things he had written, but no spoken words is what I mean. Yeah.
Bu filmde ailemin anne tarafına işte bakıyordum dediğim gibi ve özellikle dedemin hikayesini kullandım bunun için. Ama filmi izlediyseniz fark edersiniz, binlerce fotoğrafı var ama tek bir kelimesi yok dedemin. Yani yazılı olabilir ama söz olarak hiç duymuyoruz.
It made me realize that it would be nice to do the other side of my family history, my paternal side, the story of my identity, my history, my family, and the journey that brought my ancestors from Europe to the United States on the paternal side. And I thought I could do so through the story of my father, who was alive, unlike my grandfather who had died, my father who was alive and who could actually help me tell the story, or at least I thought he could help me tell the story.
Bu filmi bitirdikten sonra bir de babamın tarafını düşündüm. Hani bir tane daha film yapayım ve o tarafa bakayım ve onların Avrupa'dan Amerika'ya nasıl gittiğini anlatayım. O zaman babamla konuştum ki kendisi hayattaydı. Dedem ölmüştü mesela diğer filme baktığımızda. Ve düşündüm ki daha da iyi olur çünkü babam bana yardım edebilir. Bu filmi nasıl yaparız, nasıl konuşuruz? Öyle düşünmüştüm.
As you will see, I'm going to show you a clip from the film I made about my father called Nobody's Business. My father didn't exactly cooperate with me to tell the story of his family in the way that I had hoped.
Şimdi bir klip gösterecek ve görürsünüz ki diyor, babam pek de yardımcı olmadı aslında bu filmi yaparken.
Here we go. Hold on a moment. Okay. No, that's not the right one. Hold on, one more time. One more time. No, that's not right. Okay, we'll try a different one. Something's crossed on that. I don't quite understand, but it's okay?
Yeah.
Over them.
If you're over them, then you can
Look at him all you want, but leave me alone.
I want to ask you about it.
No, you're not going to ask me about it. I'm not going to answer you. You keep on hounding me and pounding me.
But I don't understand what the problem is.
That shows your lack of understanding. That shows your lack of sympathy. That shows your lack of empathy. That shows your lack of feeling what this means.
A son is allowed to ask his father.
What the fuck do I consent to this?
No, don't come on, don't do that.
Fucking
No,
thing.
don't.
I want to get. Leave me alone. Leave me
Tell me
alone.
what the problem is. Just tell me
Leave
why.
me alone. I don't have to tell you anything. What are you trying to get out of me?
I've been trying to make sense of the divorce all my life. This is my chance to talk to you.
It's nobody's business.
What?
One arm between your mother and myself. It's nobody's business. These are things that should be discussed between you and me. But you brought it up. I can tell you this. A single bar to that marriage was the age factor. The difference in the ages.
How much older are you than she is?
Who the hell knows?
12 or 13 years?
Something like that. And it becomes more pronounced as you grow older.
More than that, there was a cultural difference, a complete background difference. And that sort of doomed the marriage also. I felt I was sublimating my life, so to speak, and I joined some theatre groups, and I was in many plays, in many musicals.
And as the rehearsals progressed, it became more and more to the point where we're every night in a week.
But I always had dinner on the table, I always bathed the children. It was just a question of getting out after dinner and doing my thing, which was the theater.
What that does to a marriage is that you see him alone every night. The kids go to sleep, they have to go to school the next day.
Did you resent her for all that?
It wasn't a matter of resenting. I was lonely.
As lonely as you were during all the time that she was performing, you still would have wanted to keep the marriage together.
Absolutely. I felt it was important to my children to have a complete home life. I come from a background, when you get married, you stay married. You make the best of what you have and do the best you can. That's what I was doing.
That was put to you, Alan, one night. He shook you up a little and put you against the wall and said, would you rather have mother happy away from us or unhappy and with us? I can still see your face in front of me, shaking and saying, unhappy and with us. I could understand that. I could understand.
Living in a house with unhappy parents, fighting and not together as a partnership was the worst time of my life.
If I tell you the difficulties and the heartaches and the hardships and the heartbreaks and the sleepless nights.
It hurt me that I had to do it, but I waited 17 years. I just had to get out of the marriage.
Is that the biggest disappointment of your life? The breakup of your marriage?
I would have to say yes.
It was also the most traumatic event in my life.
I believe that. And I'll tell you something else. I am not fooled. In your own tenacious way, you're getting what you want. You're making me talk, and eventually you're getting what you want.
Maybe it's that I make you face up to some things.
Whatever it is. The final result is, I'm here like I am right now, looking to go into a nursing home because of her.
You think so?
Well, because if I had a wife, I wouldn't have to think of it. I would have a wife to care of me.
You could have remarried.
Yeah, once burned, twice shy.
People say that time heals.
Not always.
I told him time heals.
What did he say?
Not always.
In most cases, time is the only healer. So maybe he's not so ordinary, because an ordinary average person should be healed by time. I guess he must have loved me a lot. Or else pride, Alan.
Okay, so a few things about Nobody's Business. Number one, my father's resistance to telling his story reveals more about him, who he is, his soul, than anything he might have said if he had agreed with me to tell the story. You understand? If he had cooperated, the film would have been nearly as interesting.
Bu film için öncelikle şunu söyleyebilirim. Babamın direnmesi, yani kendi hikayesini anlatmaya direnmesi ve kapatması aslında anlatmasından daha çok şey anlatıyor bize. Kişiliğiyle ilgili, ruhuyla ilgili ve aslında benimle işbirliği yapıp anlatsaydı, daha normal bir şekilde olsaydı yine de hiç bu kadar ilginç olmazdı aslında.
My father, well, let me, so in his resistance, you know, he tells me who he is, and when I first started making the film, I thought I was making a portrait of my father. If anyone asks me, I'm making a portrait, a biography of my father. But in the way that we have to be flexible as filmmakers to understand what our story is really about, it took me a while before I understood that it wasn't a portrait of my father. It was a portrait of our relationship. It's very important. It was a portrait of our relationship.
Bu filme ilk başladığımda mesela sorsaydınız bana, derdim ki evet bir film yapıyorum. Babamın portresi bu. Babam hakkında bir film yapıyorum. Onun portresi. Ama tabii ki filmci olarak, belgeselci olarak da esnek olmamız gerekiyor. Ve başladığımız zaman özellikle babamın direnmesiyle ve bu şekilde davranmasıyla fark ettim ki sadece onun hakkında değil, onun portresi değil, bizim ilişkimizin portresi. Yani baba oğul bizim ilişkimizin hakkındaydı aslında.
Another element of Nobody's Business is archival footage. And I'd like to now give you two examples of my use of archival footage in Nobody's Business that again involve this idea of visual metaphor. You'll notice at the beginning of the clip that I showed, there's footage of two men boxing, which in many ways I'd like to think, excuse me, my father used to have an expression that when he and I spoke, we were verbally sparring. Verbally sparring. I hope there's words in Turkish for this idea. We're not looking to hurt one another. We're just playing, but with our fists, you know, verbally sparring.
Bu filmde de yine imge ve metafor kullanıyordum. Ve klibin ilk başta gördüğünüz gibi mesela bu metafor, imgesel metafor boksörler var. Onların arşiv bir görüntüsü var. Bu da babamla ben konuşurken o hep şey derdi. Hani biz konuşurken sözlerimizi kullanarak boks antrenmanı yapıyoruz. Yani vurmuyoruz tam olarak. Birbirimizi incitmek için bir şey yapmıyoruz, kavga etmiyoruz ama eğlensek bile bunu yumruklarımızla yapıyoruz, boks yaparak yapıyoruz.
In the spirit of the boxing metaphor, it was very important to me that it wasn't about winning and losing. The person in the white trunks hits the person in the black, okay? But the person in the black trunks also hits the person in the white trunks. That's important too. It wasn't about winning and losing. It was about the resiliency of both sides in that battle, which is the battle between father and son, parent and child, and generations, the collision of generations.
Bu imgesel metaforu yaratırken benim için çok önemli olan o boksörlerin kazanmak ya da kaybetmek değil. Yani böyle bir imge izlemiyoruz aslında. Böyle bir görsel yok. Daha çok beyazlı olan vuruyor, siyahlı olan geri vuruyor. Sonra o vuruyor, o vuruyor. Yani sürekli aslında birbirleriyle vuruşuyorlar ve bu bir taraftan benim ve babamın ilişkisi, bir taraftan baba oğul, ebeveyn ve çocuk ve bir taraftan da nesillerin farkı olarak nesillerin çatışması.
By using that visual metaphor, I take our relationship, which is grounded in our words, our conversation, our battle, our differences. But by using the boxing footage, I bring it to another place where you, the viewer, where audiences can go there and find their own relationship to it. It's me, it's us, but it's also you, the viewer. That's how the metaphor works.
Yani bu metaforu kullanarak sadece bizim konuşmamız değil, kavgamız değil ama bu boksörlerin görselliğini kullanarak, arşivi kullanarak aslında başka bir yere taşıyoruz ve siz izleyici olarak kendinizi orada bulabilirsiniz. Yani bu bizim ilişkimiz baba olarak ama bir taraftan da siz kendinizi de görün, sizin ilişkinizi de görün. Bu arşivi, bu görsel metaforu kullanarak.
I hope you also noticed another, for me, very important visual metaphor in the film, which is a shot of a home, a house that falls into the river. It just collapses into the river, and that image I use as the culmination, the end of our discussion about the divorce of my family. So that image becomes a metaphor for my family, it becomes a metaphor for divorce. It becomes a metaphor for the end of a certain kind of lifestyle, but that house is collapsing into a river. So there's something organic about the flow of time. We're now moving into a different part of life. The river keeps going and life continues.
Bir tane daha çok önemli görsel bir metafor vardı bu klipte. Bu evin suya düşmesi dökülüyor. Ve bunu bir taraftan ailemin durumunun bir metaforu olarak kullandım. Bir taraftan boşanma, bir taraftan bir hayat tarzının sonu. Ama aslında aynı zamanda gördüğümüz gibi o ev nehirin, suyun içine düşüyor. Yani bu bir taraftan da organik bir zaman akışı var ve hayat devam ediyor. Bunu da görüyoruz.
If anyone has any questions about the films I've shown, please, there'll be a question and answer, a time for questions and answers later. But I'd like to now go back to a little section from my film Wide Awake, the film about insomnia, and give you a sense of my studio, give you a little tour of my studio so you can see my collection of sounds, and you can see my collection of family photographs. You can see my collection of archival images and how I organize things, and to a large extent how I work. So after Gamze translates, I'm going to show you a clip. We'll call it my studio tour. Please. Yeah.
Şimdi bir klip gösterecek önceki bu uyku sorunu filminden, ama aslında bir tür stüdyosunu gezmiş olacağız. Öyle bir tur olacak ve bu arşivleri, sesleri, kullandığı her şeyi, filmleri için kullandığı her şeyi nasıl organize ediyor, nasıl kullanıyor, nasıl çalışıyor aslında, bunu görmüş olacağız.
My mother's calling me right now. Family filmmaker, personal filmmaker. I'm just going to say hello to her. Hola, Habibti, hola. Hi, I can't really talk with you now. I'm going to have to call you back later because I'm speaking to almost 100 people around the world as the guest of a Turkish film festival in Turkey. What do you think of that?
What?
I'm a guest of a film festival in Turkey, and I'm speaking with them over my computer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry.
It's no problem. I didn't tell you. I know. Anyway, you know, I just showed a clip from Intimate Stranger in the film. I mean, it's part of my talk. They saw you and Joseph, Casuto, and Rose and everyone. It's the family in Intimate Stranger. Do you remember Intimate Stranger?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know exactly what point you are filming.
Well, it's about personal filmmaking. The fact that I, you know, told your family history in a film.
Oh, all right.
All right.
Fine.
All right. You want to?
Okay.
There are some people in the audience who speak Arabic. You want to say something to them in Arabic? Nice, something nice.
Shukran.
How about something nicer than that?
What do you want?
Anything you want. Just something nicer than just goodbye. A nice Arabic expression to say goodbye to them would be nice.
It means leave with good health.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Shukran. Shukran, Awi.
That's thank you. That's
I know. Okay. Anyway, everyone should have good health, inshallah, right? Inshallah. Okay, I'll call you later. I love you. Bye. I have back, Habibti. I have back. I gotta go. Bye-bye. Yeah. Okay. My mother, by the way, has a dementia, Alzheimer's dementia, so I have to speak with her in a certain way. I hope that's okay and you understand it. Yeah. So what was I going to do? Oh, I was going to show you the studio tour, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Here we go. Yeah. Here we go. Oh, by the way, can you hear me still? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
The studio tour is at the end of what we call the coffee experiment. I've just had my first cup of coffee in 31 years. Okay, so if I talk about being buzzed, you'll understand why. Okay, here we go. Because I don't drink coffee. I can't drink coffee. It's too much for me. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Here we go.
It's official. I have now had my first cup of coffee in more than 31 years. Feeling quite activated, I should say. Now, are we in a wide shot now? No? Head and shoulder shot. Can we make it a wide shot? Can we make it a wide shot? What do we have to do to make it a wide shot? Keep going. While the camera's resetting positions, think back to what I looked like this morning without coffee. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. This is what I look like with coffee. We have a wide shot now? Okay. Now, while I have this moment and while I have the energy, you see these boxes behind me? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, the colors of the spectrum. The red boxes, they are black and white film. Old newsreels, educational films, things I got from the National Archives. The orange boxes are sound effects.
Footsteps on brush, cement, dirt, grass, gravel ground, interior snow, water. The yellow is color film. Filmmakers actually give me their outs because they know that I'll store them and put them in the archive. The green boxes are American family home movies from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. All anonymous. In a way, sometimes I think of this as sort of an orphanage for lost home movies. This is some rare footage from the old Negro baseball leagues. Looks like she's been drinking some coffee too. The blue boxes contain my own family home movies, mostly stuff my father shot when I was a kid. Everything else is stuff I've shot ever since. The violet boxes, remember Roy G. Biv, the violet, these are photographs that I've collected all over the world. Again, anonymous. Pick a box, any box. Okay, this one. Can you see here? These are portraits. I know none of these people. If you recognize anyone in this box, let me know. I'll give them back their picture. The black boxes contain photographs I've been cutting out of the newspaper. The history of the world over the last 25 years is somewhere in these boxes. Did I mention everything's alphabetical? Naturally. When you surround yourself with so much stuff, you have to be extremely organized. I need an image, I know where it is. I need a sound. That's the whole point, to be able to act at the speed of thought. Every time I get an idea, I write it down on a small piece of paper. After I act on it, I put it on one of these things you see in Chinese restaurants. By the way, I am really buzzing right now. Okay, this shelf right here, these are all found family photo albums, orphan family photo albums. I mean, I don't even understand how they come to be. Can you imagine if your family photo album somehow ended up at a garage sale or a flea market? Got lost somehow? Oops, that's the phone. The phone's ringing during the coffee experiment. Say something to the film, okay? Hold on, go.
Did you fall asleep last night?
Can't really talk because I'm in the middle of this. That was my mother. This is a collection of glass negatives. People drink coffee every day. I can't even imagine. This cabinet right here contains every photograph from my entire life. My mother is pregnant with me here. My sister is born here. It's our entire family, all the way through my life up to here. My mother's side of the family, my father's side of the family, my father's army pictures, parents' wedding pictures. For both sides of my family, I am the keeper of the memory. I don't think anyone really knows. I don't think anyone really cares. Okay. I also collect objects. Different objects. Here's a drawer called spheres, pyramids, alphabet, bells. Here's a drawer called flip books. Time. This is one of my favorite things in the whole world. Miniature watch parts. This is a sound sculpture I once made called Audiophile. Here's a drawer called No Trespassing.
Good morning. If you'd like to set your clocks, Wind News time at the film will be exactly 11:30.
Sleepless night.
That's my son Eli when he was just born, and now he's 16 years old. He's making films, he's composing music. You know, he was making too much noise before. I hope it didn't bother anyone.
That's amazing.
No.
Son gördüğünüz aslında benim oğlum Eli. Şimdi 16 yaşında ve kendisi de film çekiyor ve müzik besteliyor.
And also, as you can see, my mother has a habit of calling me in the middle of things that when I'm busy doing things. But I love her and I'm happy. May she call me forever, anytime. It doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Mothers always do that, you know.
Yes, yes.
Ve gördüğünüz gibi tabii annem bazen böyle iş yaparken birden arıyor, sürekli oluyor ama umarım hayatımın sonuna kadar böyle arar. Çok seviyorum onu.
I have some advice I'd like to give to filmmakers, but before I do, I'd like to show a 3-minute film it's a short film I made. It's a portrait of my cousin Edwin Honig, who was a poet and a translator. And it's called 56 Ways of Saying I Don't Remember. My cousin Edwin, it's from a film, it's related to a film I made called First Cousin Once Removed, and it's about my cousin Edwin's Alzheimer's disease.
Şimdi bir kısa film göstereceğim. Bunu kuzenim Edwin hakkında yapmıştım. Kendisi şair ve çevirmen. Ama aynı zamanda Alzheimer hastalığı olduğu için böyle bir film yaptım. Adı da zaten 56, right?
56.
56 şekilde hatırlamıyorum demek.
Okay, so this is a short film. It's just 3 minutes. Here we go. Moment. Wait. You have it full screen?
Mm-hmm.
You have it full screen. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
I don't remember. Let me think. Beats me. I don't know. I've forgotten. I don't know. I've forgotten. I don't remember. I'm not sure. Je ne sais pas. I can't tell you. Should I know? Who knows? I don't remember. I am afraid I've forgotten. I cannot tell you. I should know that. I don't know what I can tell you. It's passed by. Why do you ask? I don't remember. I don't know. Let me think. I can't remember enough to answer that question. The whole thing seems now to be all bundled up. It's hard to explain, I guess. I remember what I've forgotten. I forgot what I remember. Is that clear? Offhand, right away, I can't tell you. I'm not trying to hold anything back. I don't know where I am. Where were we? Will you repeat the question? What did you ask me? What do I remember? 0. If there's another way to say it, I'd like to hear about it. That's too much to tell you. It's all a mystery. Tell me what you mean. Takes me time to put together what you told me and the thing itself. And so I cannot tell you. It feels momentarily blah blah, but then it disappears entirely out of my mind. Entirely. Sorry to be so stupid. It's a hard question. What is it you're looking for? Does that need an answer? I don't think I can redo what is felt by putting it in the face of what I hear or place of being. I don't know what the hell you mean. Sorry. The mind can be blank and it still be going. That's the trouble. Does that make any sense? I have no idea. I'm not sure I'm telling you everything the way it was. I've forgotten all that. Maybe you call me on a bad day. There isn't much to say about all that. It happened once upon a time, and so on. I've lost something. What's the word? Memory. Wait a second, say that again. I don't know what I said.
So, you know, that's a film made entirely out of talking heads, you know, and I make my cousin talk to himself. He asks questions, he answers them, he remembers, he doesn't, you know, that's just the power and the joy of editing. To say something I like to think that's powerful about memory and losing one's memory. Again, that's a film outside of First Cousin Once Removed, which is a feature film I've made about my cousin Edwin.
Bunda da görebilirsiniz mesela bütün film tamamen konuşan kafalar aslında. Ve kuzenimi kendisiyle konuşturuyorum. Bir soru soruyor, sonra kendisi cevap veriyor. Bunu görebilirsiniz zaten ve sonuçta bu filmi yaparken kurgu müthiş güçlü bir şeydi. Çok güzeldi benim için. Bunu yeni bir filmden gösterdim size. Edwin diye bir kuzenim hakkında.
Okay, I'd like to move to another part of what I'd like to discuss with you, and I call it my advice to filmmakers. So I'm going to put that on the screen, and then I'm going to read it, but excuse me, I'll also maybe have some comments about some things as I read them.
Şimdi bir şeyler paylaşacağım sizinle. Neler yapabilirsiniz diye. Onu göstereceğim ekranda, aynı zamanda konuşuruz.
So this is an entry for a book that was published, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago about, they asked various filmmakers to give their advice to young filmmakers. And of course, one filmmaker said his advice was marry someone, his advice to filmmakers would be marry someone rich. You can, Gamze?
Bunu bir kitaptan aldım. Bir kitap basılmıştı. Onun için yazmıştım. Film yapan kişilerin genç filmcilere yazdığı öğütler, işte ne yapabilirsiniz diye. Biri de zaten sadece şunu yazmıştı. Film yapmak istiyorsan, filmci olmak istiyorsan zengin biriyle evlen.
Another filmmaker wrote, never take advice from anyone who would even think of offering you advice.
Başka biri de yazdı, kesinlikle sana öğüt vermek isteyen birinden öğüt alma, kimseyi dinleme yani aslında.
But I took it seriously. I took the challenge seriously, and I liked, you know, these are some 10 different things that occurred to me if I was going to give advice to young filmmakers.
Ama ben bunu ciddiye aldım ve gerçekten özellikle genç insanlar için ne paylaşabilirim, ne söyleyebilirim onlara. Sorry, Alan, do you know the name of the book? The title of this book?
You know, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll get it to you. I'll get it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, if it's on my website, but I don't remember. It has it's like advice to filmmakers or something. That's the subtitle. I just don't know what the exact title is. It could be looked up.
Okay.
Yeah. So very often young filmmakers, there's the question about what to make films about. What should your films be about? So allow me to read the first entry here. And then Gamze, you can translate. It's okay? Yeah? And the words are in front of you, so it's easier. You don't have to remember it so much. Follow your fascination. Find what it is you're drawn to, what you're magnetized by, emotionally, psychologically, unexpectedly, irrationally, ineffably. The ideas, person, places, or things that make you think, that make you worry, that bring you joy, that bother you, that amaze you, that make you want to know everything there is to know about them.
Öncelikle ilgi duyduğun şeyi takip et. Ve ne senin magnetize ediyor, ne seni çekiyor aslında duygusal olarak, psikolojik olarak, beklenmedik bir şekilde ya da mantıksız bir şekilde tamamen o fikirler, o insanlar, o yerler ve şeyler seni düşündüren ya da seni endişelendiren, seni neşelendiren, rahatsız eden ya da bu müthiş dediğin şeyler. Sonuçta o şey hakkında her şeyi bilmek istediğin şeyi bu.
I'm just going to speak outside of the text here for a moment to say that I personally have two major criteria for films that I would make, that I could possibly make. One is it has to be something that I need to do. There has to be a deep urgency for me. You know, what's keeping me awake at night? What do I need to do? It has to come from a place of need. And secondly, it has to be a subject that really fascinates me. Something that, because I know it's going to take me a few years to make the film, so something that I can enter, a universe that I can enter, that I can learn about, and that I can continue to learn about and grow with. A subject that has, a lot of different parts to it that I can enter. Because again, so it has to really excite my fascination. So it's fascination, need and fascination. Gamze, please.
Benim için mesela iki şey gerekir film yapmam için. Birincisi tamamen lazım olması. Yani benim ne yapmam gerekiyor? Geceleri ne düşünüyorum? Şu an neyi ifade etmem gerekiyor? Yani acil bir ihtiyaç gibi aslında. İkincisi ise beni tamamen benim ilginç bulduğum şeyler. Yani ilginç derken 2-3 sene süreceği için bu filmi yapmak, o konunun ya da kişinin neyse tamamen benim ilgimi çekmeli. Onun hakkındaki her şeyi öğrenmek istemeliyim ve geliştirmeliyim kendimi aynı zamanda. Onun için bu iki şey gerekiyor aslında benim için. İlgimi çekmesi ve ihtiyaç olması.
Second entry here. Enter your subject with an open spirit. Each film you make is a journey. Throw away your expectations, assumptions, and your detailed itinerary. Allow yourself to get lost along the way. Make room for surprises and discoveries. Play.
Filme, konuya başladığında ruhunu aç, yani aklın ve ruhunu aç. Her film bir her film bir I've gone blank. Yolculuktur. Her film bir yolculuktur. Onun için bütün beklentilerini, yazdığın detaylı planları at dışarıya ve aslında kendine izin ver ve kaybol biraz. Sürprizlere ve keşfedilmesi gereken şeylere yer aç. Oyna.
I must say, many of you who are watching, I would imagine, are studying in school, or some have studied in school, and I understand the importance of learning as much as you can about your subject and writing treatments for your films and so forth. But I must tell you, I have never written a treatment for a film in my entire life. I wouldn't even know how to write a treatment.
Birçoğunuz belki okuldadır, film okuyordur. Bilirsiniz ki her zaman bir tretman yazılır. Her şeyi planlıyorsunuz, işte ne yapacağınızın, film ne olacak. Şunu söylemeliyim ki ben hayatımda bir tretman yazmadım. Hatta belki yazmayı bilmiyorum bile.
And that's because if you have a script for a documentary inspired film, then all you will get is what you intended at the end of the line. You won't be able to look to the left or to the right or underneath or from above. You won't be able to discover where your story might take you in different directions and become enriched with new kinds of meanings. So don't be locked in to what you think you want people to say and what you hope that your film is going to look like. Be open to discovery.
Yani özellikle belgesel filmi yaparken eğer bir tretman yazıyorsan ya da senaryo yazıyorsan sadece o yazdığın şeyi bulmak için ilerlersin ve ancak onu alabilirsin. Yani bir insan ne söyleyebilir burada? İşte bu görseller nasıl olmalı? Ve aslında tamamen kendini kapatırsın. Ve aslında tam tersine belgesel film çekerken açık olmalısın ki o seni yolculuğa çıkartsın ve başka şeyler keşfet. Belki başka şeyler çıkacak ve filmin yönü bile değişebilir. Farklı yönleri, farklı parçaları olabilir. Onun için kendinizi kapatmayın.
Continue to read here. Remember that filmmaking is a process. No one gets it right the first time. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. In filmmaking, self-doubt is both contagious and self-fulfilling.
Hatırlayın ki film yapmak bir süreçtir. Hiç kimse için ilk yaptığı şey doğru olmaz her zaman. Onun için yanlış hata yapmak için korkmayın. Film yaparken kendini bu şekilde sorgulamak hem bulaştırıcıdır, yani başka insanlar için de olur ve kendisini büyütür. Self-fulfilling. Sorry, I couldn't find quite.
Okay. Know that some things will be out of your control. That's part of the process. But also know that one thing leads to another, quickly or slowly, but always. Know that a path is a path, even in a fog.
Bilin ki bazı şeyler kontrolünüzün dışında olacak ve bu da zaten sürecin bir parçasıdır. Ama bilin ki aynı zamanda bir şey başka bir şeye yol açıyor. Bu hızlı olabilir, yavaş olabilir ama her zaman olacaktır. Bu yol yoldur. Sis olsa bile yol var yani.
Don't be afraid to have bad ideas. Every good idea is the great grandchild of bad ones. Bad ideas point you in two directions, away from what doesn't work and towards what does.
Kötü fikirlerden korkmayın. Her iyi fikir zaten kötü fikrinin torunudur. Kötü fikirler sizi iki yöne doğru gösterir. Bir tanesi zaten o olmayan, kötü olan şeyden uzaklaşmak. Diğeri de iyi olacak şeye doğru gitmek zaten.
Listen to your film. It will tell you how it needs to be made. Quietly at the beginning like a soft pulse, then loudly and more clearly towards the end like a strong personality. Sounds crazy, but it's true.
Filminizi dinleyin. O size zaten söyleyecek ihtiyaçlarını. Öncelikle bu sessizce olabilir ama yavaşça daha sesli bir şekilde, daha net bir şekilde söyleyecek güçlü bir kişilik gibi. Bu delilik gibi gelebilir kulağa ama gerçek.
Make friends with luck, accident, and serendipity. They are forces that can be garnered and cultivated. They are your allies. They are your friends.
Şans, kaza, bunlarla arkadaş olun. Onlar size bu güçler kullanılabilir, beslenebilir ve sizin için arkadaş olur aslında.
Believe in yourself. Trust your instincts. You've been honing them. You've been developing them your entire life. You are your own best guide. Try to become your own best critic. In filmmaking, confidence is both contagious and self-fulfilling.
Kendinize inanın, hissettiklerinize güvenin. Zaten bütün hayatınız boyunca bunları geliştiriyorsunuz. Sen kendi yönünü en güzel şekilde bulacaksın. Ama aynı zamanda en iyi kritiğin kendin ol. Kendin yap bunu. Film yaparken kendini iyi hissetmek de aynı zamanda zaten bulaştırıcıdır. Yani o özgüven bulaştırıcıdır.
Each film you make is a unique equation to solve. Take pleasure in the challenge of finding unique solutions. Each film you make is a mystery to solve. It will confound you at every turn and push you to the edge of your wits.
Her film benzersiz bir çözümü olan sorudur aslında. Onun için eğlen ve bundan zevk al. Bu mücadelede o tek ve özel olan çözümleri ararken her yaptığınız film bir gizemdir aslında. Çözmeniz gereken bir gizemdir. Ve her seferinde sizi şaşırtacak ve bütün aklını, fikrini, her şeyini kullanmak zorunda kalacaksın.
And then finally, filmmaking is supposed to be hard and fun. Filmmaking is supposed to be fun and hard and difficult. You will never stop learning how to make films, so you have to get used to that.
Zaten film yapmak zor olmalı, öyle. Ama aynı zamanda eğlenceli. Eğlenceli olmalı ama zor. Yani hiçbir zaman film nasıl yapılır öğrenilmez. Yani bunun sonu yok. Her zaman öğreniyorsun. Onun için buna alışın.
Okay, I'm going to take it off screen and I want to say a few things about this. Okay, I'm back, right? That's good. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing about filmmaking. You've all the filmmakers in the room. You've chosen a very, very difficult thing to do. You know, to weave stories, personal stories, and history, and words, and music, and sounds, and ideas, and weave and lessons from the past, and ideas for the future, and cautionary things, and issues and of life and death, and emotion, and your inner truths into stories. I'm sorry, Gamze, that's a long sentence. I'm sorry. Do your best. I'm sorry.
I'll summarize.
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah.
Tabii ki çok zor bir şey seçtiniz. Yani film yapmak, filmci olmak çok zor bir şey. Çünkü hikayelerinizi kullanabilmek, yönetmek, yazmak, duygularınızı anlayabilmek, tarihten ders çıkartmak ama aynı zamanda gelecek için fikirler üretmek, bunların hepsini yapabilmek, müzik, beste, yazı, arşiv çok zor bir şey.
Just think about this idea of finding an equation in your lives where you can take the most difficult thing that you could possibly do and make that fun. The most difficult thing you could possibly do and make that fun. Okay? Because that is how you grow. That is how you learn. That is how you evolve, not only as a filmmaker, but as an informed citizen of the world.
Yani şöyle bir eşitleme yapmaya çalışın filmci olarak. Bir taraftan çok zor ama çok da eğlenceli olması. Yani bu şekilde zaten birleşirse ortaya çıkan şey güzel olur.
In the United States, we have this sport called baseball. Of course, no one's playing sports now because of the pandemic. But in baseball, we have the major leagues and we have the minor leagues. I'm happy to say in art, like in filmmaking, there's no such thing as major or minor leagues. There's just what you do.
Amerika'da bilirsiniz bir spor var, beyzbol. Ve büyük lig var, küçük lig var. Ama şunu söylemekte memnunum, mutluyum, şunu söyleyebilirim. Filmde, sanatta böyle bir şey yok. Yani büyük lig, küçük lig diye bir şey yok.
There are film festival programmers, there are museum curators, there are broadcasters, there are commissioning editors, there are people out there whose job it is to find you and your films. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's your first film or your fifth film or your 10th film, it doesn't matter. Make something powerful, make something meaningful, make something relevant. Okay? Make people laugh, make people cry, but people are looking for your films. They're looking for your voices. They're looking for your innovations. They're looking for your ability to transform and translate the world. And they're looking for your films.
Yani bilin ki dünyada bir sürü film festival programcıları var, müze küratörleri var, dağıtımcılar var. Bu insanların işi zaten sizi ve sizin filmlerinizi bulmak. Onun için Yaptığınız işleri iyi yapın, güçlü bir film çıkartın ortaya ve bilin ki bunun bir yolu vardır. Bunu arayan, sizin sesinizi, özellikle sizin ifade etmek istediğiniz şeyi bulmak isteyen, arayan insanlar var. Yeah.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is continue making your films, continue working hard. You know, struggle is part of the process. Don't be afraid, as I said earlier, to have bad ideas, you know, because they always help you grow into better ideas and good ideas. And you know, stay focused on what you're doing, and someone will see your work, and you know, you will have your work shown.
Onun için filmlerinizi yapmaya devam edin. Hata yapmaktan ya da kötü fikirlerden sakın korkmayın. Çünkü birileri bulacak sizin filminizi ve izletmek isteyecek. Onun için devam edin. Zor olabilir, mücadeleler, zorluklar olabilir. Vazgeçmeyin.
I think this might be a good time if there are any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Yeah, actually, I have prepared a couple of questions, but now you were, yeah, I mean, it was flowing perfectly, so I don't want to interrupt you.
Okay.
I don't need to, and you already answered actually some of them. So I want to give up from my share to the audience, because there are some questions that written on the chat section. I just want to let those who already sent the question to read or to ask their own question, if they can turn off Sue. I don't see the full name, Sue Ipn. If you can turn on your mic and ask your question, it would be nice.
Hi, my question is, as a documentary filmmaker, how do you approach your subjects and objects, and how does that affect your editing process? And as you mentioned about marrying a rich partner, how do you get your fundings?
Okay, well, that's a lot of questions, but I'll do my best. You can hear me, right? It's good, yeah?
Yeah.
So I have had the good fortune over the years. I'll answer the last question first. I've had the good fortune over the years to have my films broadcast on, on internationally, so that helps with funding. When I was younger, I was able to receive funding from various arts foundations and arts organizations around the country, and so, there are never ever any guarantees about funding for my films, but again, I've, and it's not easy. I'm not here to tell you it's easy, because every film is its own series of challenges in terms of funding, but basically from broadcast and from arts organizations and foundations that have supported my work over the years. Gamze, I'm sorry for repeating. Yeah.
Okay. Bütçe hakkında bir soru vardı. İşte bütçelerini nereden çıkartıyorsun diye. Şansıma şu an zaten ulusal izleyicilere, kitlelere ulaştığım için, filmlerim izlendiği için daha kolay artık, daha kolay olabiliyor. Öncesinde birkaç ülkedeki sanat enstitüleri ya da organizasyonlarından fon alıyordum. Kolay olduğunu söyleyemem, söylemeyeceğim. Zor olabiliyor ve hiçbir zaman garantisi de yok. Ama vardır, yani fon alabilmek için farklı yerler var. Oralara başvuruyorum.
In terms of, you asked a few questions. Let me just speak about editing first. I don't think I'm alone in saying that in the genre of documentary film, most documentaries are, the storytelling for most documentary films take place in the editing room. The story is discovered, is found, comes to life in the editing room. So much of what I was giving in my advice earlier was to say that don't be afraid of that. You know, it's okay not to know everything about your film. It's okay not to have every question answered. It's okay to go with some issues, with your strategies and your storytelling out of focus, because that's what editing is for, to bring it into focus, to have new ideas, to have bad ideas, turn them better, to grow your story. It's all about discovery in the editing room.
Özellikle belgesel filmi için kurgu zaten hikayeyi bulduğun yerdir. Onun için korkmayın bundan. Önceden bahsettiğim gibi, söylediğim gibi filmim ne hakkında ya da nasıl olacak, nasıl toparlayacağım diye korkma. Çünkü zaten kurguda olacak bir iş bu. Ve sürekli denemenle olacak. Belki kötü bir fikrin olacak, sonra başka bir şekilde değiştireceksin. Ve o odak noktasını aslında kurgu masasında bulacaksın. Orada deneyeceksin, orada keşfedeceksin.
And for those of you who are making personal films or thinking about making personal films, let me give you another kind of metaphor to think about. I like to think of every film that I make, as either or both, as both a window and a mirror. Every film I make is both a window and a mirror.
Özellikle kişisel film, yani kişisel belgesel filmi yapmak isteyenler için söylüyorum. Ben film yaparken, böyle filmler yaparken özellikle bunları hem ayna, aynı zamanda pencere olarak düşünüyorum.
Every film I make, and really every film that we see, is a window to a new world, to a new culture, to a new character, to a new story. We look out, and it's how we learn about the world, something new about the world. All right. You know, I've never been to the Arctic, but I learn about the Arctic by seeing films and characters who live there, who explore there, and so forth. So every film functions as a window to the world, you know, and the complexity of life in that world.
Yani izlediğimiz her film aslında bir penceredir ve o pencereden bilmediğin insanlar, yerler, olayları görebiliyorsun o film sayesinde. Mesela ben hayatımda hiçbir zaman Kuzey Kutbu'na gitmedim ama bunun hakkında film izleyerek onu gördüm, onun hakkında bir şeyler öğrendim.
But for personal films to work, that window also has to become a mirror. And the best films are both windows and mirrors simultaneously. Now, what do I mean by mirror? When a viewer watches the film, they're not only looking through at the window, but something happens in the storytelling where it becomes a mirror and they see themselves. They see some part of themselves that if they don't see themselves, they see parts of their lives that they recognize. And in that recognition is reflection on where they fit in, or how that affects them and makes them, you know, as they sit and watch the story, they realize that they're learning something, or it's making them think and reflect about something in their own lives as they sit there. All right, so personal films have this, or the best films, you could even say, have this dual life, window and mirror.
Kişisel filmler ya da belki de en iyi filmler genel olarak bu pencere aynı zamanda bir ayna oluyor aslında. Yani bunu derken ne demek istiyorum? Sadece pencereden dışarı bakmak, başka bir yere ya da başka birine bakmak değil, aynı zamanda o aynaya dönüşünce kendini görüyorsun aslında. Kendi yansımanı da görüyorsun orada. Ya da kendi yaşadığın olaylar, farklı yönlerini ve bunu gördüğün için de izleyici için bir içe dönmek ve bunu düşünmek, bunun hakkında düşünmek ya da bir şeyi keşfetmek için bir alan yaratıyorsun aslında.
Next question, please.
Özgün Gündüz has a question about the pre-development research process.
Hello.
Hala burada.
Hello,
Buyurun.
Ellen. First of all, thank you so much for joining, giving your time today, and thanks to the organizers. It has been great to listen to you today. So I'm curious about what kind of resources do you use when you kick off your pre-development or research process? So you talked about psychology, anthropology, history. How do you find the resources, the research articles in these areas? Do you have any websites you look at, any books? I'm just curious about the steps in your research process and the practicality and your daily practice. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let me say, now with the web sources like Google and Reddit and things like this, everything under the sun is now available to us to explore for research.
Araştırmayla ilgili bir soru vardı. Yani bunun nereden başlıyorsun ya da belli kullandığın sayfalar ya da kitaplar var mı diye. Alan'ın söylediği de bugünlerde zaten Google var, Reddit var ya da işte erişebileceğimiz bin bir türlü sayfa var internet üzerinden. Onun için araştırmak için her şey var şu an elimizin, burnumuzun dibinde yani.
So, the trail of research for any subject is unique to that subject, so it's hard to really say. But I can say that if I take two examples from the top of my head, insomnia, sleep, and even the film I made about my cousin Edwin, First Cousin Once Removed, which is memory, the loss of memory, Alzheimer's. So basically, my approach to research on any of these subjects, both of which, have fascinated me for a long time, I want to know, before I begin shooting, editing, I try to learn everything I can about the subject. I'll go online, I'll read articles, I'll buy books, I'll look at films. I try to take it all in. I don't want, because, well, let me stop there and then I try to take it all in.
Yani bu soruya tek bir şey söylemek zor olur. Çünkü her konunun farklı bir araştırma süreci vardır. Ama şöyle bir örnek verebilirim. 2 örnek yani. Bu uyku sorunu, insomnia ile ilgili ya da kuzenimin Alzheimer yani hafızasını kaybetmekle ilgili çalışırken herhangi bir şeyi çekmek başlamadan önce tamamen bu konuları araştırmak istedim. Yani internete girip araştırmak, makaleler okumak, kitaplar almak, filmler izlemek, yani hepsini önce bir anlamak istedim, araştırmak istedim.
First of all, when you're researching a subject and you're for a film, if you're being careful and open, some articles, some books, some movies, there will be possible references to archival footage. Some article might suggest a sound, or a piece of music, I mean, when I made Wide Awake, I learned that Bach's Goldberg Variations was commissioned to help someone sleep at night. I didn't know that before I started. So then I found a copy of it and I'm using that as part of the soundtrack to the film. So everything is connected. One thing leads to the next. And of course, when I'm researching, I'm always learning something, and I'm writing it down. I'm always writing it down.
Yani bir şeyi araştırırken zaten o kendiliğinden başka şeylere yol açıyor. Yani bir makalede referans vardır, başka bir filmi referansı vardır. Ya da mesela bu Insomnia hakkında film, Wide Awake hakkında film araştırırken bir makalede Bach'ın müziğinin bir müziğinin özellikle uyuyabilmek için yazıldığını öğrendim. Bunu önceden bilmiyordum ve özellikle o müziği kullanmak istedim filmde. Onun için sürekli böyle bir açık olduğun sürece zaten bir zincir halinde sana geliyor araştırırken. O sana başka bir kapı açıyor. Oradan başka bir yere gidiyorsun. Ve her öğrendiğim şeyi, her fikrimi yazıyorum.
Now, I also, just as the final answer to your question, which I thank you for, is I'm also motivated to learn as much as I can about the subject. I want to know everything there is to know. But, and this is very important, each of our films is a story, okay? That you know, in a 90-minute or 80-minute vessel shape, cannot contain everything you know about that subject. So in many ways, you learn everything about the subject, but you have to accept that your film can't include everything. So you have to know, and this is part of the discovery, it's part of the process, it's part of the discipline. You have to both accept and understand and learn what parts of everything that you've learned can be included and what parts have to just can't be included. You know, what to let go of. All right? But it has informed your making of the film, but it's just not part of the story. And some films that we see try to include too much, you know, some don't include enough, but it's always kind of a delicate balance to make those decisions about what to include and what not, even though you've done research and you know everything. Good stories can't include everything. Some things don't have to be said, some things can be said and implied, and so forth. It's a delicate negotiation.
Yani bir film için bir konuyu araştırırken gerçekten her şeyini öğrenmek istiyorum. Tamamen her şeyini araştırıyorum. Ama şunu da kabul etmek zorundayız. Bir film yapmak sonuçta bir hikaye ve o hikaye normalde işte nedir? 80-90 dakikalık bir film biçiminde zaten yapıyoruz bunu. Onun için doğal olarak her şey içinde olamayacak. Yani sen her şeyi araştırmış olabilirsin ama hepsini filmine koyamazsın. Onun için kurguda bunu zaten keşfetmek ve öğrenmek çok önemli, bu disiplin. Neyi tutmalıyım? Aslında hangi hikayeyi, bu hikayeyi nasıl anlatacağım ve neyi bırakabilirim? Yani sonuçta o filmde olmayacak. Bunun bir sürecinin bir parçası olacak aslında. Ama bu seçimleri yapmak zorundayız ve bu çok zor bir denge. Ama yapa yapa öğreniyorsun.
Next question, please.
May I insert a question? I said that I will not ask, but I have one, because you just mentioned about this mirror and window thing, which perfectly makes sense. And thinking about the two films that you also mentioned, Wide Awake, which is more a mirror more than a window, I suppose, and the film about your cousin, Edwin, which is about another person. Can you compare the making of this, the process of making this kind of two films, the one about yourself and you turn the camera to yourself or to another one? Which one is easier or more difficult, or do you feel in control when you film someone and more than filming yourself? I can just make a short translation. Bu pencere ayna karşılaştırması, filmler hem öyle hem bir ayna hem bir pencere dedi. O bağlamda onun bazı filmleri işte Wide Awake kendisi hakkında insomnia hakkında yaptığı film ama aslında kendi insomniası daha çok bir ayna. Kuzeni hakkında, Edwin hakkında yaptığı ise bir pencere gibi dışarı, yani bir başka bir insana bakıyor. Bunları karşılaştırmak mümkün mü acaba? Yapım anlamında kendine kamerayı çevirmek daha mı zor, daha mı kolay? Yes.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question. Somehow I've never been asked that question before. So thank you for that. Gamze, just
Teşekkür ederim bu soruyu sorduğun için. Çünkü hiç biri öyle bir soru sormamıştı önceden.
yeah, I can honestly say that every film that I've ever made is more difficult than the one before. You understand? I never once said that, oh, this film is easier than the one, or every film that I made, and in fact, I want it that way. I want it that way. I want every film that I make to be more difficult and more challenging and to demand more of me than the one before. And I have to say, the film that I just completed this past year called Letter to the Editor was easily the most difficult film I've ever made. I never worked harder on anything, and I am a hard worker, I promise you. I've never worked harder on anything in my whole life, but also because I think I'm getting better at the challenge that I made to the people watching earlier. I might have never worked harder in my whole life, but I also never had more fun. And it doesn't matter what you do in life, filmmaker or writer or musician, it doesn't matter. Again, if you can do the most difficult thing and work harder than ever and have fun at the same time, that's magical. That's magical. And we should all aspire to that. Sorry, Gamze, I'm sorry.
Aslında yaptığım her film bir önceki filmden daha zor oluyor. Bunu söyleyebilirim. Onun için ve aslında böyle olmasını istiyorum. Yani her seferinde daha zor olsun, daha çok mücadele edeyim, daha sıkı çalışayım diye bunu istiyorum aslında zaten. Mesela en son bitirdiğim film Kurgucuya Mektup. Kesinlikle hayatımdaki yaptığım en zor film ve bu kadar zor bir şey yapmamıştım önce ki çok sıkı çalışan biriyim ama gerçekten çok zordu. Ama aynı zamanda çok eğlendim. En çok eğlendiğim filmdi aynı zamanda, yani zevk aldım. Ve zaten bunu anlatmaya çalışıyorum. Yani eğer hem çok çalışıp hem çok zorlanıp mücadele edip hem çok zevk alabiliyorsan zaten orada büyü oluyor.
But to explore your question further, Nejati, even the portrait films, the one about my father, the one about my grandfather, the one about Edwin, as I mentioned, they're not just portraits. They're about my relationship with those subjects. So that's filled with delicate negotiations and filled with challenges to storytelling that make them very difficult.
Ve aslında bunlar portre filmleri bile olsa, yani bu dedesinin hakkında, babasının hakkında, kuzeninin hakkında yaptığı filmler sadece öyle değil aslında. Aynı zamanda bizim ilişkimizi anlatıyor. Onun için her zaman farklı bir zorluğu oluyor, bir mücadelesi oluyor bunu anlatmak için.
At the same time, a film like Wide Awake, or an earlier film I made called The Sweetest Sound, but even the new film, Letter to the Editor, I do have to develop a persona, the storyteller, and I do have to write voiceover for the film, which has its own challenges. How to do that with a consistent voice, with an empathetic voice, with a voice that's, I'm able to make fun of myself, to be serious, but also to, be a balance of both humor as well at the same time. So every film has its negotiations and its complexities. But I can honestly tell you that every film that I have made, regardless of what it's about, whether it's a portrait or a first person, has been the most difficult thing I've ever tried to do And as I mentioned, I wouldn't have it any other way. And let me just add, and that's because I love what I do. I love what I do. I love making films. And so, you know, that's fun.
Okay.
Yani şunu söylüyor aynı zamanda, bu dış sesi, hikaye anlatıcı gibi kendi sesini kullanıyor bir de filmlerde. Bunun için de ayrıca bir kişilik bulmam gerekiyor. Yani şurada kendimle dalga geçebilirim, burada daha ciddiyim. Yani nasıl dışarıdan olsa bile bu sesi nasıl kullanırım? O da farklı bir şey oluşturuyor aslında benim için. Ama genellikle ister bir portre filmi olsun, ister kendimi çekmem olsun, kesinlikle o zaman için yaptığım en zor film oluyor. Ve ben de zaten öyle olmasını istiyorum. Kesinlikle bundan vazgeçmem. Çünkü sonuçta ben yaptığım işi, film yapmayı çok seviyorum.
And one more thing, after I make a film, if I have the good fortune to show it, so I travel to festivals and I screen the film and I visit and I show the film for like a year. And then, you know, I almost, during that year that I learn about the film, I also need to erase from my brain not only the details of the film, I need to forget how hard filmmaking is. I literally need to forget how hard filmmaking is so that I can make another one. Otherwise, I wouldn't, you know. It's almost like you hear women, sometimes mothers say, you know, if I knew, you know, they after having a first child, how difficult childbirth is, maybe they have to forget that because they wouldn't want to have another child. You know, you hear there's like comparisons to be made a little bit. Yeah.
Yani bir filmi bitirdikten sonra, gösterime gittikten sonra işte bu festivallere gönderiyorum ve yaklaşık bir sene gösterimleri oluyor. Ve o zaman içinde de aslında kendim detayları unutmaya çalışıyorum. Yani özellikle film yapmak ve zorluklarını unutmaya çalışıyorum. Yoksa belki de başka bir film yapmam. Yani bu annelerin bazen dediği laf gibi, hani eğer o doğum sancıların, doğum yapmamın acısını hatırlarsam bir daha belki çocuk yapmak istemem dediği gibi bir kıyaslama yaptı.
Perfect. Well, you have been talking over 2 hours, Ellen.
Remember,
We'll have
for
one
me,
last.
It's okay. For me, it's daytime. Everyone, it's nighttime. It's 9 o'clock or something. You know, in different parts of the world. But I'm in the middle of the day. I could.
Yeah, but we don't want to keep your Sunday afternoon so long. We have a last question from Can Candan, who probably you remember. You know each other. He interviewed you when you were in Istanbul, I guess. Now, Can.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, I remember we sat in an outdoor restaurant.
Exactly.
Yeah, how you doing?
And we compared our sons, remember?
That's right. That's right. And, you're right. You're right.
Exactly. It's so nice to see you after all these years.
Indeed.
And I'm looking forward to seeing your new film. I hope it comes this way somehow.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So I have a question about Intimate Stranger. How do you think the cursory experience of seeing a photograph only for a second affect the viewer? Because the typed letter in a typewriter, and that's the length of the image since you use that sound, and a photograph that we meet for the first time is so different.
Yeah.
One is extremely simple, obviously, and familiar, and while the other one is so complex and foreign to us. So let me say this in Turkish as well. So thanks to Gamze, she's been translating for 2 hours there. So I'll do my own translation.
Okay, thank you.
Soru şu, sizce bu bir fotoğrafı, ya Intimate Stranger filmiyle ilgili, bu dedesiyle ilgili olan filmle ilgili bir soru bu. Sizce bir fotoğrafı anlık görmek izleyiciyi nasıl etkiliyor acaba? Daktiloda basılan ya da yazılan harf, ki görselin ekranda kalış süresi bu aynı zamanda o daktilonun tek harf basma sesiyle, ilk kez karşılaştığınız bir fotoğraf birbirinden çok farklı seyirci olarak. Harf çok basit ve tanıdık bir şey bizim için seyirci olarak. Fakat ilk kez karşılaştığımız bir arşiv fotoğrafı hem yabancı hem de okuması anlamında çok da karmaşık bir şey. Ne düşünüyor bu konuda acaba? Yes, Alan, it's your turn.
Okay. So first, before I answer the question, the heart of your question, let me tell you what I did how I did the photographs with the typing. I had someone, I'm not much of a typist, but I had someone type sections of my grandfather's autobiography. So it's using my grandfather's typewriter, and it's having someone type sections of the text. Okay, then I took and I recorded it, and then I analyzed it, and like, you know, for each of the, I'm going to make a sound on my computer. I don't know if you're going to hear it. It's like, you know, bump, bump, bump. For each of the clacks, between the clacks, maybe this clack was of the typewriter was 5 frames, and then 6 frames, and then 4, and then 10, and then there's a pause. You understand? I analyzed it, the amount of frames. So I had a score, right? A template of a score of how many frames in between, within, if it's an 8-letter word, how many frames of each letter, and then a space, and then, so I had a score to work with. Gamze, let's get that far.
Yani bunu hazırlık yaparken birine daktiloda yazmasını istedim aslında ve aynı zamanda ben de ne kadar sürüyor yani 8 harfli bir kelime yazarken şu 2 kare şu kadar bu kadar diye aslında kendime bir tür ne diyeyim biçim yazdım, oluşturdum. Onun için her zaman aynı değil zaten o aralıklar. Bunu kullandım, bunu hazırladım.
Okay, so I felt, and I still believe, and in my new film, there's a section with typing, you know, so it's a motif and a strategy that I continue to use. But I felt that the first thing is that by having so many photographs typed, even if they're little fractions of a second, okay, it does 2 things first. One is it indicates volume, that there are many photographs, which is part of the story in itself. Gamze, that's one thing. That makes sense, yeah?
Yeah.
There are lots. And so, okay. Yeah, please.
Bu daktilo sesini çok kullanıyorum aslında. En son filmimde de kullandım aynı şekilde. Hızlı geçerken yani o daktilo sesiyle bir sürü fotoğraf gördüğünde bir taraftan aslında şunu zaten algılıyorsun izleyici olarak. Çok fazla fotoğraf var. Yani gerçekten çok fazla.
Secondly, it allowed me to prioritize which photographs I thought should be on for a longer time or shorter time and make those kinds of judgments, right? Also understanding that in the digital age, I'm creating a kind of microfilm so that if someone wants to go back to the film and look at it frame by frame, or look, it's there, the information is there, but I have prioritized what's important, what's not, but it's the information on a micro level is there. If that makes sense too, yeah? Okay, please, Gamze.
Daktilo sesiyle ben seçmiş oluyorum. Yani şu fotoğrafta 1 saniye geçeceğiz. Diğerinde 5 saniye duracağız. Yani bunu ayarlamamı sağladı bir taraftan. Ve şöyle bir şey de var. Zaten çok merak eden biri varsa hani şu fotoğrafı bir geri dönelim. dijital zamanda yaşıyoruz. Bunu durdurup o kareyi zaten bulabilir. Orada var aslında. Sadece ben tercihimi yaptım kurguda. Ama sonuçta geri dönüp buna bakabilirsiniz.
And you know, the other thing is that I'm trying to use it as a metaphor for the typewriter, as a metaphor that the screen is a blank page, you know, and listen, and I also use the bell. When we get in an old manual typewriter, when you get to the end of the line, there's a bell goes off and there are carriage returns in the film. But I'm thinking like about music. I'm thinking about music and rhythm. And by giving the film this musicality and this rhythm, you know, it's, you know, A minor can't complain if it's only on for a quarter of a beat when D sharp is on for a, you know, a half a beat. It's just how it goes. You know, that's music. That's just the music. That's the rhythm. That's how it goes. But the information is there and it's been prioritized and thought through. And again, just to repeat, the idea of volume and also the metaphor of my grandfather was writing his autobiography. I'm not writing a book. I'm making a film, but I'm using the editing machine. I'm using the typewriter, transposing it to a visual structure. I'm using Sinema as a visual pictograph machine of some kind. And that to me, and last thing, and Gamza, I know I apologize. Listen, when I first started showing Intimate Stranger, the people in the first row or two would complain to me, you know, about the assault on their senses, you know? Anyway, that's how it goes. That's music.
Daktilo sesini kullanırken aynı zamanda o seslerle, bir de o zil sesi de var tabii, farklı sesler var. Bir müzik oluşturuyorum. Yani bir ritim, bir müzik var orada. Ve sonuçta besteci müzik yazarken hani la notasına şu kadar zaman verdin, si notasına şu kadar verdin diye bir şey yok. Sonuçta o bir müzik, öyledir. Böyle düşündüm zaten. Ama tekrar etmek için zaten dediğim gibi fotoğraf orada, yani görmek isteyen geri dönüp orada durdurabilir. Ben tercihimi yapmış oldum kurguda ve o daktiloyu kullanmam önceden dediğim gibi dedemin daktilosuydu zaten ve o otobiyografisini yazarken kullandığı için hani o boş sayfadan onun yapmaya çalıştığını ben sinemaya taşımak için, yani görsel ses ve imgeyle görsel sinemaya taşımak için böyle bir şey kullanmış oldum. Bir de şey dedi, işte bu ilk izleyenler vardı filmi ilk gösterirken. İlk sırada oturanlar hani ne yapıyorsun ya diye şikayet etti. Yani çok fazla görüntü, ses vesaire var diye.
And if I can leave you with one more metaphor, Khan, for your question. Sometimes I would think of it as if I was creating a portrait, a little sculpture of my grandfather, that each of those typewriter hits is like a chisel hit, you know, on his portrait. It's a chisel hit. And so there's that power too, in a way. You know, you don't have to know, it might go by quickly, but it's still it's a gesture, and there's content and information in it too.
Son bir metafor veriyor. O da bu filmi aynı şekilde ama dedemin heykelini yapmış olsam çamurdan. Yani bu daktilo sesleri ve o geçişlerin bir vuruş olarak düşünürsek, hani tamam çok hızlı geçiyor ama o şekillendiriyor. O zaten şekil veriyor o heykele.
Well, because you said it's okay for you talking a little bit longer, we have one more question.
Okay.
And I see that there are still 63 persons who are eager to hear you.
Okay.
Seray?
Thank you very much, and it is really nice to have Alan here again. We also met in Istanbul 2013, and let me show you a picture of us together. Okay.
I saw.
Okay, you saw.
As Can would say, I saw it very briefly, but I saw.
Okay, very
It's like
good.
a chisel hit, but I saw.
Because I know that, I mean, these, personal, private photos, moments, special for you. That's why I wanted to show you. I have many questions, but I don't want to keep you more. And I really, I mean, listen to with a great admirance, to watch your films. My question is, I really wonder, we were very curious about your latest documentary, Letter to Editor, and we know that Documentarist was a small part. I don't know, but I read some news, some articles about that. And European, premiere was in ITFA, I guess.
Yes.
Documentarist was a part of that film. Istanbul was part of that film, and we also read your, great poem about Istanbul. And now, a little more information or a little more, sharing about your latest documentary. And also, I would like to hear your comments. Because you are living now in a situation like we have in 2013 after George Floyd's murder.
Yeah.
So I also want to hear some updated news developments. I mean, what's happening in America now? Really, pleasure to listen to you. And the last question, sorry for everyone. What the other family members think about your memory collection? Do you have any space in your home anymore?
Okay, that's a lot of stuff. So, thank you. I can always put more shelves in my studio, so there's always room. Of course, now I'm asking your last question first. There's always room in my studio for more shelves and to put things, but of course, so much of information and media now is ephemeral. It's digital and so forth. So I have, cabinets filled with drives. No more objects, not so many photographs of new photographs. It's now drives, but of course, as you know, we have to migrate drives to drive because the cabling is different and the connectors are different. So that's a whole new archival burden that we have, those of us who like to save things for future generations. Gamze, let's do that first.
Can you say the last bit again? Sorry.
I'm just saying, now that all the photographs that we take are on our cameras, on our cell phones and so forth, and video that we take is in cards and have to be stored on hard drives, but last year's hard drive has different connectors and cables. This year's hard drive. So it's not just storing things, it's preserving them and migrating them from one generation to another. It gets complicated.
Yani şöyle zorlaşıyor aslında, zaman geçtikçe tabii hani telefon kullanıyoruz ya da dijital kamera kullanıyoruz ve bunlar farklı kartlarda, işte kablolar, hard diskler vesaire farklı şeyler oluyor ve her sene bunlar değişiyor. Onun için sadece bunları organize edip bir yere koymak değil de hani nasıl kullanabilirim ya da birine vereceksem, çocuğuma vereceksem ne şekilde bunu vereceğim, yani nasıl kullanabilir, açabilir yine diye böyle bir sıkıntısı, zorluğu var.
I'll go to the first part of your question. You asked three big questions. I'm going to go to the first question now. There is a section of my film called Letter to the Editor that describes my visit to Istanbul in June of 2013 and my experience of the protests. I tell the story of the protests, and I talk about the masterclass. Remember, I was brought, like I am today, I was brought to Istanbul in 2013 to talk about these personal films that I've been making. But how can you talk about personal films when you're in the middle of a revolutionary moment? You know? So I discuss in my film how I brought what I knew and what I have learned from making personal films to this moment, you know? And the fact that I myself was tear gassed across the few days that I was there changed my life. I changed my life. I, as you know, I wrote a poem, and then to my surprise, within the year, someone used my poem. Some composer used my poem as a I don't want to say inspiration, but used my poem in a beautiful piece of music called Drums of Taksim, you know. And I was so moved by that, it stayed with me. And when it became time for me to make my film, I used that music in the film, a lot of it, you know. I'll stop, Gamze, you can please, yeah.
Yes, in this latest film, there's definitely a part about Istanbul and about how...
In English now.
Oh God, yeah. Wow, sorry.
It's late at night.
Şarteller indi.
Ben yardımcı olayım mı sana Gamze istiyorsan? Çok gördük.
I didn't even notice that. Çok tuhaf bir şey. Tabii 7 sene önce geldiğimde Gezi döneminde bu son filmimde geçiyor. Yani ilk defa böyle bir şey yaşadım ve o zaman da aynı bu şekilde bir masterclass veriyordum. Ve hani bir anda işte biber gazları, böyle devrimci bir an var dışarıda. Hani nasıl ben şimdi ders vereyim, nasıl bir şey olacak diye. Benim o kişisel film yapma, nasıl yapıyorum, ne yapıyorum, hani o deneyimlerimden bu zamana, bu duruma ne aktarabilirim? Yani bu durum için ne söyleyebilirim aslında? Bunu nasıl birleştiririm? Kendim de zaten biber gazı yedim ve bu da hayatımı değiştirdi. Yani hiç böyle bir şey yaşamamıştım. Hatta sonrasında bir şiir yazmıştım. Ve bu şiiri kullanan biri vardı müziği için. İlham aldı yani bundan. Taksim'in Davulları diye bir parça. Hatta bu parçayı da kullandım zaten filmin içinde. Benim için çok önemliydi. What was your last point, or was that all?
I have no idea what you said.
Well,
it's okay. It's okay. But let me just say,
it was about the. I think you didn't translate the piece about the music, did you?
Yeah.
Gamze?
Taksim'in Davulları.
Filmde kullandığınız. Pardon. Tamam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are some legal reasons that make me very sad at this moment, where I cannot screen the film. But I can tell you that hopefully that will be resolved. I need, the gods need to come to my aid to help me now in this moment. But I have looked forward to the possibility of one day showing the film at the Documentarist Film Festival, which I mentioned in the film. It's part of, I was invited to Turkey as a guest of the Documentarist Film Festival. I say that's part of the story. You know, and so it's, I mentioned freedom of the press in Turkey. I mentioned social media, the role of social media. And there's also a section of the film about what I learned about tear gas from being in Istanbul during that time. It's one of my favorite sections of the film, and it was a big, inspiring, I think just to say generally, my experience in Istanbul in June of 2013, again, almost exactly 7 years ago, was in many ways part of a transformative experience that allowed me to go to the places I needed to go to even make Letter to the Editor. It was very much a transformative experience for me. Gamze, please.
Umarım bu son filmi gösterebileceğim. Biraz sıkıntılar oldu. Ama özellikle Documentarist Film Festivali'nde göstermek istiyorum tabii ki. Hatta zaten Documentarist Film Festivali söylüyorum orada hani 7 sene önce bu film festivali için gitmiştim diye bahsi geçiyor zaten filmde. Ve o dönem gerçekten benim için çok önemliydi. Yani hem bu filmi yapabilmek için benim için dönüştürücü, geliştirici bir şey olmuştu. Ve aynı zamanda kendim için nasıl diyeyim? Çok yani ilk defa şeyi bile söylüyorum filmde, pardon. Bu biber gazı hani nasıl bir şey, nasıl bir deneyim bu bile geçiyor yani filmin içinde. Ve benim en sevdiğim parçalardan biri bu filmin parçası İstanbul'la ilgili olarak.
And I would just finish that part of your question by saying, just to remind you, this film, Letter to the Editor, is composed entirely of newspaper photographs that I cut out of the newspaper over a 40-year period. And part of the power, I'd like to think, I hope, that part of the power of telling the story of my experience in the Gezi protests, I use protest images from all over the world, from many different, all over the world, from many different causes and injustices, if you will, as part of the storytelling. So, which is to say that it's both about my experience in the Gezi protests, it's about the Gezi protests and Turkey, but it's also about the human drive for expression, for freedom of speech, and for the power of protest. You know, so it's all unified in this section of the film. You know, I use hundreds of photographs of protests all over the world in this section. Yeah.
Yani yaklaşık 40 senedir gazetelerden de kesiyorum. Onları da arşivliyorum, bunları da kullanıyorum. Ve Gezi için bu bölümü kurgularken, yaparken sadece Gezi'de çektiklerimi değil de dünyanın birçok yerinden görsel kullandım aslında. Yani protesto sahneleri, benzer şeyleri. Bu yönden şunu göstermeye çalışıyorum. Yani Gezi'deki olan özellikle insanların kendini ifade edebilme, ifade özgürlüğü, basın özgürlüğü ve eylem yapabilme özgürlüğü daha genel bir bakış açısından hani bu herkesin bir hikayesi.
And to your middle question, which we could talk here for hours about the situation in the United States after the murder of George Floyd, I could just say a few things. It feels like, well, let me just say, because we have to back up a little bit, the pandemic around the world, but especially the United States, because we have the, you know, apparently we have the most deaths and the most cases, and we've handled it the worst. So it feels like the world has gone crazy, is what it feels like. It feels like we're in a science fiction story nightmare. That's the context before the George Floyd event. But Gamze, I'll move from there after. Yeah.
Son bu soruya gelince bu George Floyd'un cinayeti hakkında ve Amerika'da neler oluyor? Zaten bu olaydan önce pandemiyi düşünerek Amerika'da gerçekten sanırım dünyadaki en çok ölülerin olduğu ve işte en kötü bir şekilde devletin yani bununla ilgili çalışmaları ne yapılıyor vesaire diye. Yani sanki bir deli bir dünyada yaşıyoruz ya da bilim kurgu filmi gibi. Öyle bir durumdaydık zaten. And what's next?
Shall I continue?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. So it feels like in the United States now that we're in a profound moment of transformation. And in many ways, the documentation of the brutality to George Floyd, because many different people recorded the same 8 minutes or with their cell phones, so the police can't hide. Everyone saw a brutal murder in broad daylight from different angles. We heard his voice saying, "I can't breathe." We saw his voice call out for his mama in the throes of his pain. Everyone saw this, and there's no hiding. We saw this. I'll stop there. And the whole world saw this. The whole world saw this.
Yeah. Bu özellikle bu cinayetin kameraya alınması ve birçok insanın orada bunu görmesi ve cep telefonundan çekmesi, yani polisin saklanabilme şansı yok artık. Yani herkes gördü, çekti ve bütün dünya gördü aslında. Sadece Amerika değil, bütün dünya bunu görmüş oldu, şahit olmuş oldu.
So the George Floyd murder, because that's what it was, has become a metaphor, a symbol, a profound symbol all over the world for police brutality to African Americans, which has been a problem forever. His very words, "I can't breathe," have become, again, symbolic of the entire African American community's submission and oppression, not only by American culture, but also especially by the police. And so it feels as though, and so protests are still taking place all across the country. There were some ugly days at the beginning where there was some violence and vandalism and looting, but for the most part, there has been a tremendous outpouring of support and protest in support of, or in, how should we say, against police brutality towards the African American community, of which there are numerous and many multiple examples. But somehow this feels like enough is enough. And there's something going on. It's an election year in the United States, and there's, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's now people have been in their homes all across the country because of the pandemic, you know, and now everyone's supposed to go out and wear a mask for social distancing. And now there's this profound irony that those masks that everyone's wearing for social distancing, what does it turn out? Those masks are helping people protect themselves from tear gas, you know? So this is a crazy time.
Gerçekten dönüştürücü bir an aslında Amerika'da. Yani sonuçta George Floyd'un görüntüsünü gördük, sesini duyduk. Herkes bunu görmüş oldu. Yani bunun tamamen polise karşı, yani polis şiddetine karşı bir eylem olduğunu görüyoruz ve çok uzun zamandır zaten var olan bir sorun ama aynı zamanda insanlar hani evde kalmış pandemi sürecinde, bu zaten zordu. Üzerine böyle bir şey olunca ilk günler biraz şiddetli, işte yağmalama vardı, farklı şeyler olmuştu ama artık gerçekten insanlar çok destek veriyor. Bir akım olarak, yani bir eylem olarak çok destek verenler oldu. Ve çok önemli şeyler de var. Sonuçta Amerika'da aynı zamanda bir seçim senesindeyiz. Seçim olacak. Bunlar nasıl değişecek diye bakıyoruz. Ve şu da ironik bir şey. Hani pandemi oldu, evde kaldık. Şimdi dışarıya çıkabiliyoruz ama maskeyle çıkmak zorundayız. Ve bugünlerde bu maskeler aslında bizi biber gazından koruyor.
So there's anger in the air, there's frustration in the air, there's a questioning of history, there's an attempt to reconcile with history, there's in the Congress, there's questioning of laws, everyone's questioning police practice and how to change and keep police honest, you know, how to keep the police honest. There's also a heartwarming confluence in the streets of both African American and, you know, white Americans together in ways that I've never seen before. You know, and again, it's an election year, so you know, all I can say is that I hope that all the people in the streets, a lot of young people in the streets, but also older people too, but all those young people have to vote in November, you know? That's really what this is about, voting in November, November 3rd. I count the days now till November 3rd in the United States, because not only will the United States change, I hope, but I hope that the world will change when we come back to our senses. Because it feels like now more than ever, there's just madness. It's just madness, and it's, you know, enough, basta, you know.
Asta, and thanks for sharing. I mean, all impressive, and I hope this changed something. We are all, I mean, with you, and we are the witnesses for George Floyd.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
Bir çevireyim son şeyi. Çok öfke var, çok yani çok fazla duygu yaşıyoruz tabii bugünlerde. Tarihimizle yüzleşiyoruz bir taraftan ve ilk defa bu şekilde, ilk defa hem siyahileri hem beyazları beraber gördüm bu eylemlerde. Bu da aslında çok güzel bir şey. Ve en önemlisi dediği gibi bu sene seçim olacak. 3 Kasım'ı bekliyorum diyor. Hatta sayıyorum günleri ve umarım bu dışarıdaki sokaklardaki gençler ve daha yaşlıları olanlar da o gün oy verecektir ki dünya değişsin, bu delilikten kurtulalım artık diyor. Biz de inşallah diyoruz.
There's a if you can find it on Google, and I'm sure you can. There was a memorial a few days ago in Minneapolis for George Floyd, in which the Reverend Al Sharpton, who's actually a New Yorker, spoke. He kind of led the ceremony for it, and it's really extraordinary. His passion and his oratory in the church was just very powerful. I recommend watching it in its entirety. It's really, it's a new moment in both civil rights and racial awareness and speaking truth to power in the United States that I've never seen before.
Birkaç gün önce.
Powerful moment. I'm sorry, yeah.
Sorry, no, sorry.
Okay, it's okay.
Birkaç gün önce de bir anma töreni vardı George Floyd için. Pederin konuşması vardı. O da hatta New York'la aslında. İnternetten bulabilirsiniz görüntüleri. İzlemenizi tavsiye ederim. Çünkü gerçekten çok özel bir an ve değişim için, yani bu süreçte özellikle ırkçılıkla ilgili, işte sivil haklarıyla ilgili bir bilgi almak için önemli bir an. İzleyin diyorum.
I hope I said Reverend Al Sharpton. That's his name. That's the guy who spoke.
Al Sharpton, bu anma töreninde konuştu.
S-H-A-R-P-T-O-N. Yeah, very powerful.
Well, Alan, we are all looking for the election in November, I know. When you have the election in the States, we all feel like into it. Good luck.
I think it's 149 days from now, you know.
Thank you so much.
UK as well.
Alan, you know, you have been talking over almost 3 hours now, non-stop, and with full dedication and passion and lyrism and emotions, and I'm really touched by that. I would like to thank you so much. You know, actually for this symbolic event, what we call a Documentarist Home Edition, the first person came, when we thought about this, the first name that came up in our mind was you, honestly. I wrote you a little bit late, but the idea was came quite earlier now. I feel like it was really a good choice, the best. I cannot imagine a better result, judging from this beautiful class. I would like to thank you so much, and I wish you. And we are really looking forward to see your last film in Istanbul with you.
Thank you.
And then we will have a chance to talk more about it. I know it's a painful story now for you because of all these legal things, but once it is over, we'll have a chance to discuss it more and more.
I look forward to it. Inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah. And please don't forget to call your mom and say hello to her or warm greetings to her.
Right, I will. Okay.
So
I wish you all well. Stay safe. Stay healthy. I hope the rest of the festival goes really well, Nejati. All right? In these strange virtual times that we live in. All right? Gamze, Gamze, thank you for.
And of course, Gamze.
I got a free ticket to the.
Please a clap for Gamze.
It was very inspiring, really, and I really, really loved your films. So thank you.
And we need to send her to sleep because we need her for the next week. You know,
save her. Save her energy. Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
I didn't understand a word you said, but it felt like you did a great job.
Thank you.
She did.
I like completely said different things to you. Imagine. Just totally changed your words. He said you're awful. He hates Turkey.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
And we would like to thank to Öykü, who is actually on the technical part of this. She's doing this for the first time in her life, but she did a great job. Technical person.
Thank you for
everyone. She's in Mars now.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank
and enjoy. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you, Nejati, Ellen, Gamze, Öykü.
Ciao, Ellen. Thank you very
Selam
much.
to Shari and Ellie.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.